Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit now about Italian opera. And this was a vocal form that developed out of the Renaissance. It was an entertainment form of from Florence. Sorry, I'm not able to see myself on the screen. Hang on a second. There we go here. Developed in Florence by a group of Florentine thinkers. Actually, one was the father of Galileo, Vincenzo Galileo, and they formed a group where they were trying to recreate the idea of Greek drama. I mentioned to you in the medieval period that, in the Renaissance, that it was a rebirth of ideas of the Greeks, and one idea that they were trying to do was recreate what they thought was Greek drama. Whether or not they got it right, we don't think so, but what came out as a result of that was what developed into opera. And the idea was to have a single vocal line that was accompanied by a small section of instruments. They called it continuo section because they played continually. And this was the idea of continuous music. It was acted out with singers and costumes and scenery and created this new genre. And the first composer that we associate with opera was a fellow by the name of Claudio Monteverdi. And he created what's now known to be the first opera. He lived in Venice. And the opera that he created was on the Orfeo story. And the Orfeo story was a favorite myth, and it dealt with Orfeo, whose wife, Eurydice, is bitten by a serpent, a snake of some kind, at the beginning of the opera, maybe even before the opera begins. And I think because she did not have a chance to say penance in the Catholic tradition, if you don't get your last rites in before you die, you are consigned to hell, whether you're meant to or not. And so the opera starts with Eurydice in the underworld, and Orfeo is determined to go back to save her. He is a beautiful singer and a performer, and he is so powerful with his lyre, with his instrument, his little harp, that he is able to basically seduce the monsters of the underworld to let him pass. And he finds his beloved wife, Eurydice, and he is determined to take her out back to the upper world. But as with any opera and any journey, there has to be some gambit, something on the line. And the understanding is that he will be able to bring her back to his world as long as he doesn't look at her until he gets back. And he agrees to that. They let him go past. He finds Eurydice, and on the way back out, back up to the upper world, she is crying to him as to why he's not looking at her. He can't explain to her what the situation is. This is just the deal that he cut with the monsters of the underworld. And she is fighting, trying to figure out why he will no longer look at her. And at some point, he can't keep himself on the straight and narrow anymore, and he turns around to look at her, and he loses her again. That's more or less how the myth ends, I believe. But in the opera, Apollo, the god Apollo, takes pity on on Orfeo, and he brings him up to heaven, where then Orfeo can look at his wife forever. This is a 3-act opera. It's a very long piece of music. It probably takes a good couple hours to perform, maybe 2.5. And I'm going to give you a caveat now that some of what you're going to hear, you are going to find very strange. But it's important that you understand that opera is born from the Baroque period, and this is kind of what we think early opera sounded like. The vocal inflection, the types of delivery that the soloists, that the singers use, sounds very strange to our ears today. It's highly embellished, but you will hopefully understand, at least by looking at some of this video, the gist of what was going on. So this portion of this opera from Monteverdi's Orfeo, that's the name of the opera, is an aria from Act 3. So by the point this comes in the opera, we've already been sitting in the seats for an hour and a half or 2 hours. And it's called Posante Spirito. It's a very famous aria from this opera, O Powerful Spirit. And an aria is a sung portion that gets into a basic beat pattern, into a pulse. Then there's another section called a recitative, which is more spoken. So let me put these two words down here, which I failed to do before. We have a recitative, which is spoken dialogue with music. So it sounds free, as if you were speaking, and we speak with just whatever rhythm, natural rhythm we have or we don't, like I'm speaking to you now, and there would have some music accompaniment to it. And generally, recitative was a means of getting through a lot of information so you can kind of set up the scene, the drama, set up the action. Then the singer would launch into an aria, and that is sung melody, again with music, and it has a pulse or a beat. And it tends to be reflective. So you get to the action, you get through the action, and then you are reflecting on the action of what's just happened, or you're explaining your emotions with an aria. And that is the idea of the Posante Spirito. So we're going to have some recitative to begin with, and then the aria. And hopefully I can get this up here without too much of a disaster. Let's see here. You can hear it's in the minor mode. It's very sad. And operas are performed in all kinds of different ways. Sometimes they are done to try to put the scene back like we think it would have meant to look, and sometimes they update it. And I can't remember exactly what they've done here, but I think this is pretty traditional, but you will eventually see Eurydice, her image, passed up on a screen at the back of the stage. Now we see the performers. And this is Orfeo singing this aria. This is the river Charon. Basically, he has to get past this river in order to get back to his beloved, Eurydice. Generally, in a performance, the singer, Orfeo in this case, would be looking out to the audience, but this is a filmed version, trying to make it a little bit more artistic. And he is singing to the monsters of the underworld. You can't see them in this production, but basically telling them how much he loves his Eurydice and how much he wants to visit her. And he is basically seducing them with his song. And this is also supposed to look like Orfeo now playing his lyre. So we can hear from that example of an aria from Monteverdi's Orfeo kind of what's going on in the world of opera. So this is a very early example. We're going to talk more about opera as the semester goes on. But you should know that opera was a musical genre that developed during the Baroque period, and that it's basically comprised of sung music, constantly. The music goes on continually during the performance, and that basically tends to vacillate back and forth between the ideas of recitative and aria, which now I'm having trouble getting this. There we go. There's the recitative, which is spoken dialogue. It wasn't really clear in this performance, but in the opera that we're going to listen to when we talk about the classical period with Mozart, you'll hear very distinct differentiation between recitative and aria. Okay, that's all for this video, and we will take it up from there when I see you guys.